Hello there. I'm Mad Mike. For those just joining me, welcome. For those joining me again, welcome back. Alright, it's official. I'm 13 reviews in. So, I figured it'd only be appropriate that I review a movie synonymous with that number. Ladies and gentlemen, Friday the 13th. The concept of Friday the 13th is a superstition in Western culture that dates all the way back to, ironically, the early 1300s. The idea is that whenever the 13th day falls on a Friday, everyone is likely to encounter some form of bad luck. From just having a rough night of sleep to literal death, Friday the 13th tends to be a time where people feel uneasy and where misfortune runs amok. However, Friday the 13th is also synonymous with a certain film franchise that centers around a hockey-masked killer. Friday the 13th series centers around a killer named Jason Voorhees, an inhuman killing machine in a hockey mask who resides in a place known as Crystal Lake. Due to a traumatic event from his childhood, the mentally unstable Jason stalks the woods of Crystal Lake, taking the lives of anyone who comes near, good or evil. This franchise has spawned several films and has gone everywhere a long-standing franchise can go. From New York to space to even a showdown with Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, Friday the 13th has been a popular slasher series for years. However, the series had a much more humbler beginning than one might expect. Hell, the first film didn't even involve its iconic killer. The first film that came out was in 1980 and was known as Friday the 13th. Directed by Sean S. Cunningham, Friday the 13th centers around a group of camp counselors who were at Crystal Lake to reopen a camp that was closed many years ago after the murder of 2 camp counselors. However, it only seems to spark more killings as the counselors begin dropping like flies, and they need to figure out who the killer is before they all end up as just another page in the history book. This movie is definitely riding off the success of John Carpenter's Halloween, which sparked the phenomena of slasher films after its success. However, unlike Carpenter's film, this movie has a more of a mystery vibe to it, as we don't ever see who the killer is until near the end. So, who was it that first sparked this franchise and turned it into the cult classic it is today? Well, why don't we dig in and find out? This is Friday the 13th. Let's review. So our film begins with our camp counselors singing along to a camp song in 1958. As the singing progresses, 2 counselors decide to leave for a little quiet time. Or maybe they just want to get away from the camp songs. I do admit, while most camp songs are pretty fun, some are kinda shit. We also come to one of our first interesting things about this movie, the first-person view, or POV. A lot of the kills are done in POV shots, which sets the mood of the film and gives the audience a feeling of actually being there while it happens. It also adds to the mystery, as we don't know from whose perspective we're looking at, but other people do know the killer, which makes you wonder who it is. Plus, it's always nice when they bring the soundtrack with them.
He's a creepy cop.
We weren't doing anything, we were just messing around.
Hey, that's what you get for trying to have sex at the beginning of a slasher movie. They always end up being killed. We then get our opening credits, which are coming in kinda fast. Ah! We then cut to the present, where one of our first victims, characters, shows up. This is Annie, played by Robbie Morgan, who is hitchhiking all the way to Camp Crystal Lake, which is now being reopened. Luckily, the locals are pretty neighborly, and one of them offers her a ride. A truck driver, played by Rex Everhart.
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph. Why don't you go to the Twilight Zone? I hear a lot more people will listen to you there. On the way down, our truck driver tells Annie about the incident in the past at the camp. Along with the counselors, it seems that a boy had drowned a year prior, making people believe the camp is cursed. Oh, I'm sure all these events are purely coincidental.
Dumb kids. Know-it-alls. Just like my nieces. Heads full of rocks.
You're an American original.
I'm an American original. Dumb kid.
I agree. Her comeback was pretty lame. We then cut to some of our other counselors. Ned, played by Mark Nelson, Marcy, played by Janine Taylor, and Jack, played by Kevin Bacon. Yep, Kevin Bacon is in this movie. And no, he doesn't live. They arrive to meet everyone else. Bill, played by Harry Crosby, Brenda, played by Laurie Bartram, Alice, played by Adrienne King, and their boss Steve, played by Peter Brower. And I gotta say, Steve is doing a good job on that 80s adult mustache. He'll go places with that look. Oh, another thing about the POV shots that help add to this movie's atmosphere. At some points, the POVs are done in a way that act as a sort of false alarm. Like in this case. It's obvious that someone isn't behind the tree because Alice would have seen and acknowledged this person from the way she was walking. However, we don't know this until that point, so as far as we know, it's someone watching her, which adds a lot of tension to the scene.
I'll be back sometime after lunch. It's supposed to rain like hell, so get as much done as possible. I don't want to get too far behind.
We need to get everything done before the movie's climax, otherwise all our efforts won't be a bust.
Ta-da!
Are you crazy?
Yeah, Ned, you're supposed to let the killer do that to her. Wait your turn. We then come back to Annie, who hitches another ride from a stranger in a Jeep. Only I don't think the stranger is as nice as the previous one.
Hey, wasn't that the road up for Camp Crystal Lake back there? I think we better stop.
You know, it's rather ironic. People constantly talk about the dangers of picking up hitchhikers, but never the other way around. I'm glad this movie's being a bit more conscientious about that point. Annie attempts to escape, only I don't think she came out in one piece. We then cut to everyone back at camp, working on getting the docks ready.
Now, if you were a flavor of ice cream, what would it be?
Rock and roll.
Hey!
Personally, I'd go with s'mores. There's a hella good flavor, plus it fits with the environment. However, as they're working, something seems to happen to Ned.
Hurry up, hurry up.
Come on,
Ned.
Come on.
Oh, Ned!
Well, now that scene is done, we need to get to the real scares of this movie. A snake!
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
What do I do?
Kill it.
It might bite.
Haven't you ever been in the woods?
We're not in the woods.
Not in the woods? Where do you think you guys are? The desert? They managed to kill the snake by chopping off its head. And I bet you're asking, what did this whole scene have to do with the rest of the movie?
Nothing. Nothing? Hughes? Oh boy.
A cop then comes in to check up on the camp and asks them about Ralph, the crazy guy we saw earlier, played by Wolf Gorney. And the cop doesn't seem too impressed by our group of teens here.
Oh, shit.
Well, now, that is some f***ed up shit. You'll be hearing from me if you don't. We ain't gonna stand for no weirdness out here.
Oh yeah? Tell that to the rest of the franchise. Well, nice thing for the counselors. They don't have to look for Ralph.
I'm the messenger of God. You're doomed if you stay here.
You're gonna see some serious shit.
Night eventually begins to fall, the storm comes in, and our counselors go do their thing. Most of them play games in the cabin, but Ned goes out for a walk while Jack and Marcy go to get some alone time.
I've been afraid of storms ever since I was a little kid.
No. Really?
And it's raining really hard. It sounds like pebbles when it hits the ground. I can hear it. I try to block out the sound with my hands and it doesn't work. It just keeps getting loud.
The storm finally hits, so I can't see a better way to spend the time than make love in an empty cabin. But, hold on. Wasn't Ned also outside earlier? Uh-oh. Let's hope they don't look up. That would certainly spoil the mood. That will also spoil the mood. On the plus side, Jack wasn't up for round 2 that night anyway. After Jack is disposed of, our killer then goes after Marcy, who went to the outhouse to use the bathroom. Hey, good place to hide a body. Place already reeks of death. I would know from the years in the Boy Scouts.
On top of spaghetti, all covered in ice.
So Marcy gets the axe while everyone else disperses after their thrilling game of strip Monopoly. We then cut to Steve, eating at a diner during the storm.
Well, what do I owe you?
Just a night on the town.
You know, while they could just be joking in this scene, it does beg the question, how did Steve get all the money to refund the camp? While resting in her cabin, Brenda hears someone calling in the distance, seemingly needing help. She follows the voice and... Fool her once, she's mad. Fool her twice, then she actually does get hit by an arrow in the archery range this time around. Well, on the way back to camp, Steve's car seems to break down, so he hitches a ride from the cop, who just loves to lighten the mood.
It's not bad enough to have Friday the 13th. We've got a full moon, too. We have more accidents, more rapes, more robberies, more homicides, and more of everything when there's a full moon.
Hey now, take it easy. I've already explained the concept of Friday the 13th. The officer manages to take Steve to the entrance, where he seems to run into someone he knows.
Hello? Who's that?
Whoever it is, can they stop shining their light in front of the camera?
Oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
Well, we can confirm one thing. It's the killer. The power goes out, so Bill goes off to investigate. Yeah, and he's pretty much signed his death warrant at this point, because he's going on alone. What'd I tell ya? After encountering some of the corpses of her friends, a new person comes along. This is Mrs. Voorhees, played by Betsy Palmer, who used to be the cook for the camp. After Alice hysterically tells Mrs. Voorhees what's going on, she goes to investigate and finds the dead bodies in the cabin.
So young. So pretty. Oh, what monster could have done this?
Well, I would say Jason, but he doesn't exactly exist in the continuity yet. Plus, Jason seems to be a bit of a sensitive subject for Mrs. Voorhees here.
Jason should have been watched every minute. He wasn't a very good swimmer.
Yeah, in case you haven't put 2 and 2 together by now, Mrs. Voorhees here is our killer. And I gotta say, she's the best part of this movie. On one hand, you can't help but feel some sympathy for her, since the reason she goes on a killing spree is because of the loss of her son, Jason. And she feels that if camp opens again, it could lead to another incident. On the other hand, she's a complete loon, and really gets into character when her killer persona comes into play. Especially with this scene.
You let him drown. You never paid any attention. Look what you did to him. Look what you did to him.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
So of course, our chase begins with Mrs. Voorhees pursuing Alice all through the camp. And they go everywhere. The storage shed, the kitchen, all the way down to the beach. And during that time, Alice runs into the bodies of all the victims, while Mrs. Voorhees at times talks like a little boy, representing Jason. It's a perfect blend of fear, tension, suspense, and action, all in one, and it would be the OG to all climaxes in the future films. We then get to our final battle on the beach between Alice and Mrs. Voorhees. I'm not super flashy, it's choreographed alright.
What's he doing? No!
Eventually, Alice gains the upper hand and manages to finish off Mrs. Voorhees. Alice spends the night in the canoe and wakes up the next morning to find police at the camp, ready to escort her home. However, someone else is waiting for her too. What? Just because the villain's dead, you think the movie isn't going to pass off on giving you one more scare? Of course, it seems to be a dream, and Alice wakes up in a hospital, where the police officer tells her what happened. When she asks about the boy, the officer comments that they didn't find anybody else, and Alice says,
Then he's still there.
And that's about it. This movie is considered a cult classic, and it's not hard to see why. It's got good acting, an interesting plot, a suspenseful setting and atmosphere, and overall good-natured characters that, even though you know most will die, you can still enjoy. Plus, Betsy Palmer kills it as Mrs. Voorhees, giving us a great and terrifying performance in the last act. This movie laid the groundwork for the series overall, for better or worse, but even if it was just a standalone movie, it is still a good film. Take a look one dark night over the campfire, and may your luck be with you. Thank you for joining me on this review. Until the next film, farewell.